Call the March 10th, 2025 meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None said. Motion passes. Public forum, Tammy.
Tammy Gimple, 22359 Baton Street. Mayor and Council, I'm here for a couple things. I know I keep harping on, it seems like a certain something with the fire department, and I just feel like I'm not being heard. So I believe there's I want to say things wrong with the city of East Bethel. I looked for a synonym to wrong. I couldn't find anything that actually was better than wrong, so wrong it is. And I think that was reflected by how many people ran for council and mayor this last year, which was impressive to me to see, and I can appreciate that. And I think a lot of that was, our city is, some of what I see wrong is, it's a good old boys club. There's a lot of, it's who you know and not what you know. And I hope that is changing. I hope some of the people that we voted for are changing that. I was looking through the last meeting, and Susan Urkel, Councilmember Urkel, I have a kind of a newfound respect for you. I've been watching you and seeing some of the questions and stuff you're asking, and I can appreciate a lot of that. And one of the things you asked was about the emergency plan. The emergency plan that we had, we paid Capstone to do up their review, and in that, I mean, he had a whole page on that he had written up on the emergency operation plan. While existing, urgently needs an update, and training on its contents must begin as soon as possible. This was started in March of 24. It is now March of 25. And I mean, it goes an entire page, and if you read it, and I know most of you have read it, and if you read it again and pick up on the things I've picked up on, it's a legal document that has to be done. And not only has to be done, but it's of huge utmost importance to the residents of East Bethel, to residents of every city, but ours obviously needs help and then training. And we have a chief that we hired, that is supposed to also be the emergency manager. And that's what his description was when he was hired. It was fire chief, emergency manager. He has not touched that since he's been the chief. And that shouldn't be that way. Again, now we spent money to hire someone that pointed out that it's inadequate, hugely inadequate. And Look's response was that it's of top priority and that it's being worked on, but the county needs to finalize theirs first. And I'm assuming you're not going to talk to me while I'm up here, but I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Why the county would have finalized theirs before we have ours done. Ours should have been updated 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and now it's we paid someone to point that out even more so. And since September, the fire chief that I believe he's probably the second highest paid person in the city running a very important department that isn't, he isn't doing that job. And I'm gonna keep saying it, it's because he's not qualified. And I'll end with this. He's not an EMT. And that's, and some people maybe don't understand that, but to put it in perspective, when he comes up here and shows you, you know, how many calls there are, right? I think January there was 83 calls or something like that. And 60 some of those calls were medical. So it's always in yellow. It's all yellow, a few other colors in there, right? For, you know, car accidents, other things. But it's mostly medicals. Those, whatever it is, 80% plus calls, anyone that is an EMT is actually in charge of those calls versus him. So if you have a 6-month firefighter that's been on for 6 months, that's it, and they are an EMT, they outrank him at those medicals. And even though he's the chief of our fire department, he is being outranked at every single medical because he is not an EMT. And my biggest problem with that is because I was on the fire department and worked under him, and I think I had 3 or 4 times I had to file against him because he was trying to stop me from doing life-saving interventions while I was an EMT and he was a chief above me. And we went back and forth with him, trying to get him to understand that at those medicals, I outranked him, even though I was underneath him fire-wise, if that makes any sense. A lot of our residents are old, some of them are older. We have a lot of older residents, and those are the people that need those life-saving interventions. And they're again, going on all these medical calls, he's being outranked by the EMTs. We're paying so much money for a chief that we could at least get that. And we don't even have that. That's one tiny piece. He's not qualified, and I wish that we would look at this closer. There's a lot of good people out there that can take over that job that would be well worth our money. That's all.
Thank you. Consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a second.
Second, and I'd like to pull A, B, C, D, and E.
F and G, okay. Okay, motion's been made, seconded to adopt this. All in favor with the amended? Say
Aye.
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 Opposed? A.
Okay, A is the bills list, and I have a question about the arena electric. Is that a monthly charge, the $4,500? It just seems a little high, so I'm just kind of curious.
I actually don't have the answer on that. Nate, do you know by chance?
I should be the monthly charge, but I haven't looked at it specifically.
Yeah, do you think monthly is a good price? Because I could see if it were a bigger arena, but our ice arena isn't that huge compared to others, and I really haven't compared other people's electrical prices, but $4,500 for one building seems over the top. And then my other question is that $18,000 for the auditor, is that just like is that something they do year round, or is it for a 1 month they come in and audit, and how much per hour are we paying them? Because that seems like over the top too. Maybe we need to find a new auditor that's a little bit less. So those are my two questions. I don't know, if you don't have an answer, maybe you can get back to me another time. There's nothing I can change on it. I just wanted to bring that to attention.
Bear with me, I'll pull up the, Ice Arena just has it broken out. We can double check on the Ice Arena, Mr. Chair and council members, see if that's one
That's fine.
month or a collection of months or what the case may be on that. But I would
I'd
assume.
appreciate that.
I would assume it's not inexpensive to run those ice making, systems in there.
Okay. With that, I'll make a motion to approve item A.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. Motion passes. B.
B is the minutes. I wanted to bring up when the fire chief was talking, they totally omitted his comments about the chickens and the fires and the heat lamps, and I think they should be added because it's important public information.
Mr. Mayor and council members, the minutes that we pay for are not word verbatim. So
I understand that,
They summarize them. And if we want to add additional minutes in there, we can certainly table them, get whatever that exact word verbatim is, add it to it, and bring it back to the next council meeting, if you'd like.
And it doesn't have to be verbatim. It can just be a blurb about the warnings he gave about chickens and heaters and fires because everybody's getting more chickens out here. So with that, I'll table the minutes of February 24th so they can be added in.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Motion passes. C.
C is the adopt parks by the Coon Lake Beach people, and I just want to send out my appreciation to all of them because I used to do that, and it's hard work, and I really appreciate them. So I just want to give them some kudos and thanks from all of us up here. With that, I'll approve item C of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Passes. D.
Okay, item D, somebody else may need to answer this. This is the resurfacing bids. I'm just wondering, we're going for the very lowest price on there, which I'm very fiscally conservative. So, but I also believe quality is important, not just price. And I am wondering if you guys have checked the reviews and if their work has been above par in the past or if they've had issues. I just wonder if that kind of thing has been checked with this is it Knife River or I can't
Knife
think.
River.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ms. Circle, to your question, the Bjorklund Companies is the company that's done this for us for quite a few years. They've usually been they've always been the lowest bid for the product that we use. It's a higher quality material, and we're very confident with their work, and they do really good work. They're from Athens Township, so they're kind of local. And
Good to know.
we buy a lot of material from them too, so yeah, it is quality and low price both on this one, so.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll make a motion to approve item D of the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? None heard. E.
And E, I just wanted to bring up these bonding bills. I'm all for them, but in that brings up this question of what stake is the schools going to have in this? If this gets approved, are they going out for additional money from the state? Are they going to give some of their levy money to support this? Because I think they need to have a stake in this. I don't think the city of East Bethel should be the only people liable for this. I think St. Francis, I think Oak Grove, everybody that uses that school and goes to those schools should have a stake in it and put forth some money.
Mr. Mayor and council members, if I can just clarify, some of the, I don't know if the confusion is on this matter or not, but sometimes when you take out debt as a city, it's called a bond. And a bonding bill is also a bill at the state level, where you ask the state to take out a general obligation bond to pay for a project at a city. This is the state level, where we are going to the state and we're asking them for $10.5 million for water treatment, well, a water tower, and the lines to connect the schools. So the schools currently have they're on well and septic. Their septic is extremely large and failing, from what I'm understanding. The well is pulling up known contaminants. And so they've been asking if they can hook up to city sewer and water service. There's a cost to doing that, and that's this cost. They are in close proximity to the decommissioned landfill, and that may be part of the challenges that we're seeing over there. As it relates to how would they pay for either replacing their current septic system or hooking up to a city service, they would charge the taxpayer to do that. If it was money coming out of their pocket, they would charge a taxpayer to do that. That means local dollars. If we go to the state and say, we believe there's a regional benefit to this, we believe it can benefit the city, it can benefit a future economic development, it can also help the Met Council treatment plant operate more efficiently. There's more of a regional benefit to it now, and the state has, in the past, supported clean water projects such as this, and may they may support this. We're hoping they do, but they may come to the table with a staging mechanism where you get $3 million a year or something like that till you pay for it. The goal here, to define the stake of it, who's got a stake in it. The goal here is to use what I call opium, other people's money, to fund this project. The city, as you know, took out a $20 million bond, our debt, to pay for the current sewer system lines that are in there. The thought of taking out another $10 million is probably a failure to leave the launch pad, type of idea. So, but for the state stepping in and paying for this type of a project, it's probably not going to happen anytime soon.
So I don't think I was really clear. I realize this is for money from the state, but I also strongly believe there's no way we're going to do this for this price, for $10 million, when the one that we have over there was over $50 million. So if the state comes in with, say it does cost $10 million, and the state comes in with $5 million for us, we have to come up with the other $5 million. Would the school be responsible for a portion of that $5 million? Is what my question was in the beginning. That's what I was trying to portray.
So you're asking if the state comes in short.
Yes.
The options on the table would be not to do the project. Option B would be to go to the school and say you need to participate. That would be a tough scenario to say, we have a $10 million project, the state's going to give us $5 million. Who's going to come to the table with the other $5 million? That's a tough nut to crack. And I think that's going to be part of the goal in lobbying for this, is to say, you know what, we're strangled in debt right now from the current system. We're not going to add to it. And so we can certainly encourage the school to go ahead and replace their septic system, of which, who knows how long that'll operate, and you'll probably get to replace it again sometime in the future. Or we can just do it right the first time, and that's what we would encourage the state to participate in. So.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll make a motion to approve item D on the consent agenda.
Second.
Or was it? That was E, I'm sorry. Item E.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. 7A1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. The first planning item, is an interim use permit for grazing at 204-85 East Bethel Boulevard. The applicants have applied for sheep grazing on the property, which is zoned and guided rural residential, shown on the screen outlined in red. The request is to be able to graze 13 sheep. This is not their property. They'd be leasing this property or using someone else's property. Outlined in blue is generally the area where the grazing would occur, and as they explained at the Planning Commission, they will have a temporary fence that will allow them to move the sheep around the site for grazing. An interim use permit is a conditional use that has a termination or a sunset clause, and our ordinance includes 10 standards for an interim use permit CUP and includes additional standards for animals. And staff finds that both the general IUP standards and the animal standards have been met, and that the IUP should terminate if any of the following three things happen. They violate the terms of the interim use permit, the land title is transferred, meaning the land is sold and it's a different property owner, or they fail to start the operations within 3 years of approval. The Planning Commission held a public hearing at their last meeting and reviewed this item. Other than the applicants, there was no one present to speak on the item. The Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval, and so we recommend that the council move to adopt Resolution 25-13, approving the request for IUP for grazing of 13 sheep or goats at 208-45 East Bethel Boulevard as recommended by Planning Commission.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2025-13, granting an interim use permit for the keeping of farm animals on property located at 20845 East Bethel Boulevard, Northeast, East Bethel, Minnesota, PIN 23-33-23-11-0004.
Second. Okay, we have a motion, second. Any discussion?
I do have a question. If you have property and your neighbor has property and they want to use your property and you're okay with it, I don't understand why we're going through all this to get the variance. I need to understand that a little bit more, because I'd like to give my neighbor permission to come over if he asks me to graze his sheep or whatever. Mm-hmm. So can you clarify that a little bit, why this is needed?
Mr. Mayor, council member, I don't have all the history on your ordinance and why it exists the way that it does. It is more restrictive than some cities that I work in, but your code requires an interim use permit for animals for many things, and this is one of them.
Okay.
So that's certainly something you could look at in the future, but this is why they had an interim use permit on their own property, just to have animals. So having animals is what triggers the interim use permit. Having animals on your property, I should say.
Okay.
Any other discussion? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Motion passes.
Good luck with the sheep.
7A2.
Yes, this is a preliminary plat. The property owner or the applicant has applied for a 3-lot subdivision named Blanco de Cola Pradera, and it is 2 existing parcels as shown on the plat. It will have 3 flag lots, north-south lots, on this property that's zoned and guided rural residential. On the screen, you can see the 3 lots lining up against the county road there. There's a large wetland in the back. The applicant has complied with all code requirements for a preliminary plat in this district. The city engineer has reviewed and has provided a number of conditions of approval that must be met. Anoka County has reviewed and provided comments, but the key takeaway is that additional right-of-way is required, as shown on the plans, and the proposed access points are acceptable. So there are a number of conditions that need to be addressed prior to submittal of the final plat, but staff finds that it does, with those conditions, comply with code requirements. The Planning Commission held a public hearing at their last meeting. Other than the applicant, no one spoke on this item, and staff recommends the council move to approve the resolution as recommended by Planning Commission.
Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve resolution 2025-14 for the request for a preliminary plat for Blanco de Cola Parada for 3 lots located at PID number 2633, 23, 32, 00112, and 2633, 23, 23, 0001.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I have some comments. My first comment is, why do things come before us when there's all these other things that they still have to do? Why don't they get them done and then bring this to us, or at least show good faith and get some of them done before it comes to us? That's just a generic question.
That's right. Yeah, it's very common that there are conditions of preliminary plat. It's very expensive to do these projects, and I think probably occasionally people are a little closer to being complete, but this is a landowner who's not a professional developer. He understands that before it comes back to you with final plat, they all need to be addressed. So he has no right to do anything with the preliminary plat except move forward with the final plat. So when that comes back, you will be able to see that all the conditions have been met. I think it's simply a matter of, this is his first subdivision, I believe. I believe that's what he said at the Planning Commission, so I won't put words in his mouth, but sometimes there are things that just need to be worked through.
And this property has never been divided before, right? Because we do have some kind of rule where you can only divide a property once.
No, this is the old Norm Kuncher farm.
Okay, so, and it's intact.
Yeah, it's right across from me, basically.
And just to clarify, if I could, Mr. Mayor, the code actually says you can't do administrative subdivisions more than once, but you can replat property more than once.
Okay, my misunderstanding. All right, so I do have a big concern, and that's because it's on a floodplain and all these wetlands. Because recently, during the last council, somebody had issue and put in a driveway, and they spent tens of thousands of dollars, and then another organization came in and said, no, you can't put that driveway there. You have to put it over here because of the wetlands. So are all these different organizations involved in this whole development? Because I don't want to see people spend tons of money and then find out, oh, you got to tear that building down. It's too close to water, or it's too close to this. I mean, I've seen people, we've had residents who have put up a swing set and they're like, nope, it's too close to the water. You got to take it down, a swing set. So I would like to make sure that all the organizations that provide rules and regulations on wetlands and floodplains have been notified and inspected and done their part.
Mr. Mayor and council members, I think the one you're referring to is a filling of the wetland was the issue involved there. And anytime you fill a wetland, you're gonna have people all over you for doing so. I think in this one here, it's the wetlands in the back, and as long as they're not building in the delineated portion of that wetland, they're safe. But if they put a swing set in past the delineated line, they'll get in trouble for doing that, yeah.
Okay, but my question was all the different organizations that got involved with that driveway, which they didn't even know, they just thought it was Anoka and the city, and there was at least two other organizations that dealt with it have been contacted and done their surveys.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Councilmember, generally Army Corps of Engineers aren't involved in these type of plats. I'm not even sure if the local Lower Rum River watershed or Sunrise gets involved in handling any of these plats unless you're replacing wetland. If you're going to do a 2-to-1 replacement or something because you're going to be filling some of it, then you got to go through all those permits and get all that, and that's where they're involved. But if you just do it thinking you can get away with it, more than likely someone will report you, and you'll be in the throes of trying to deal with those agencies. So.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None heard. Motion passes. 7A-3.
This is a rezoning at 22206 Durant Street. The applicant owns property that is currently guided rural residential and zoned rural residential, and is requesting that it be rezoned to agriculture. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. That land use designation in the comprehensive plan does identify both rural residential and ag as potential compatible zoning districts. The applicant indicates that he would like to rezone to ag to allow more accessory structures because there are no accessory structure limits on agricultural buildings. The Planning Commission held a public hearing. Other than the applicant, no one was present to speak on this item, and they recommended approval of the request. So this evening, we recommend that the council move to adopt ordinance number 2025-01, approving the rezoning.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2025-01, rezoning of property identified as 02-33-23-44-0001, 22206 Durant Street.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? None being heard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Motion passes. 8A1.
Yeah, I had a couple slides on that one. But that's fine, if you want to just pull up the staff report. Either way, I had a couple, but. The last one is the barn dominium. I seem to have lost
Just do
my,
it this way.
yeah, I lost my pointer. The barn dominium ordinance, we were here last month talking about this, and we've prepared a draft ordinance for your consideration tonight. The ordinance is in draft form so that you can provide feedback to staff, and then we would schedule a public, if we have good direction and council is comfortable, we would schedule a public hearing at the Planning Commission to consider the ordinance amendment. So a couple things that came up in the staff report. There are several parts of the ordinance that have potential impacts if we make this change to the code. And we've identified those different sections. One thing is that we should define it. As we talked about last time, it seems like all of a sudden everybody's talking about it, but what does it really mean? And really, under the building code, we define it, this is the state building code definition, a principal structure with an attached shop or storage area, usually built from post frame construction. So as we talked about, post frame construction's part of it. The other part is just that it often looks like a pole barn, that it's metal siding, little architectural design. But as we looked at the ordinance, we also thought about the fact that your ordinance does prohibit home occupations in detached accessory buildings in the language in the ordinance, but does allow a path forward for somebody to come forward and ask for one. But we wanted to make sure that we do address that if we're going to make a change here in a barn dominium, which I think generally is made for, often is made for home occupations. That's one of the reasons people want to do it, as opposed to a detached garage. So when we look at the ordinances, if you go down, I think, there we go, the metal siding, our code, this came up, there was a question from, I forget which council member, about why you couldn't have metal siding. Because a council at some point decided that you couldn't have metal siding. And so a question tonight for the council is metal siding an acceptable building material on houses in East Bethel? You know, we have urban houses, we have rural houses. Is that an acceptable building material? And I think it does affect the value of homes, and I think it's maybe something you would want to limit to certain districts or certain product types. And so if we want to limit it to the barn dominium, we would simply say you should have two standards at a minimum, that the panels have been factory treated, that avoids the old corrugated metal that we used to have on the farms, and to have concealed fasteners. That also gives it a more residential character and less of a agricultural look to it. But if you think metal siding is acceptable on any and all homes, then you wouldn't really need to call out the barn dominium specifically. That's probably the biggest hurdle to the barn dominium right now, is that metal siding. The third piece relates to the size of the attached structure. And so I really spent some time kind of looking at the code. In our detached accessory structure section of our ordinance in section 14, we've got a whole mishmash of things that are both attached and detached structures that we need to, I think, clear up a little bit. One of the suggestions is that if the intent is to say that these square footages are just for detached in the table, we allow up to 3,000 square feet for a 5-acre lot, 3,000 square feet of detached accessory structure. One tool that some cities use is to say, we want to manage the size of accessory structures on lots that aren't ag. And so one way to do it is to say, attached accessory buildings, including garages, with a footprint of less than 1,000 square feet, a standard garage, a 2-star garage is 440 square feet, for reference. So an attached garage of less than 1,000 square feet, you get for free. If you want to have more than 1,000 square feet attached, like for a barn dominium potentially, you would deduct that amount over 1,000 square feet against your detached accessory building footprint. You just do that by right. There's no special permit then. You just allow people to do a larger garage. You don't call it anything different. You just call it a house with a really big garage. If you want to avoid IUPs or conditional use permits or things like that, that's a great way to manage that size. Just tell people they can do it, and you control your accessory structure square footage that way. So we looked at how big are barn dominiums? What's the issue we're trying to solve? Whenever we change the code, that should be our first question. What's the problem we're trying to solve? When we look at the Menards examples of barn dominiums, not trying to sell Menards, it's just easy to find the information. Those square footages for the barn dominiums ranged from 2,900 to 6,000 square feet. And those garages were as small as 570 square feet and as large as 3,500 square feet. Comparing the garage size to the living space that was a little trickier. We thought about, you can have up to 4 times the size of your living space in a garage, and it just felt a little bit arbitrary. There was no data out there about the right number. So I kept coming back to the idea that if the intent is to limit the amount of accessory space on a lot, which I think the city has already done by that accessory dwelling unit table, then I think this is a simple way to manage that approach. If you decide how you want to deal with metal siding first, then you can move on to how you want to deal with the garage space. And then a number of the other ordinance amendment, potential ordinance amendments that I put in the staff report kind of become clearer. So I gave you the whole report. Hopefully you had a chance to take a look at it. I'm looking for direction tonight. Again, if you're comfortable with metal siding everywhere, you don't really need to change the barn dominium to make that a new specific use. But if you want to limit it to barn dominiums, we would suggest allow barn dominiums in the ag and rural residential district, define them as outlined, allow metal siding on them, and then we can talk about what do you want to do with accessory building square footage. Do you like my suggestion? Do you want to do something different? So happy to answer questions, be part of the discussion, whatever you'd like, Mr. Mayor.
Can you go over the pictures and let me know which ones are metal siding and which ones are something else? Because they all look pretty nice to me.
So on the, let's see, which sheet is it? I think, did I put the cut sheet in there? On slide 111, Matt, if you look at that one.
Page 111?
Yeah, of the packet. Oh, the next one, I guess it is, sorry. All of these are metal siding. Metal siding can be the first one, which I think has a very agricultural look with the, it's not quite board and batten, but the vertical seams. The one in the middle, the vertical seams is sort of a board and batten look. They've also got a shake look on that house. The one on the bottom is also metal and has lap siding with a little bit, I think the board and batten is also lap siding on this one, although that might be something else. So metal siding has come a long way. I think most cities still prohibit metal siding, but I do see cities starting, because of things like this, starting to allow more of an option.
So I wouldn't mind any of those as houses as my neighbors with metal siding. However, they're not big sheets of white or red or of metal that looks like flat sheets of metal. What specifications would we need to put in an ordinance that would make them look like these? That's what I would want.
Yeah, so what you would do is you would say things like metal siding is permitted provided there are 2 or more styles of metal siding, meaning the shake and the lap. You could say things like metal siding is permitted as long as you have wainscoting, which is the brick on the bottom, or colored accent and trim boards. You could say things like, a certain percentage of the house, only a certain percentage can be one style of siding. Those are the things you'd do if you wanted to prevent, I think there's
Look
an
of a barn.
example of what some people might think on page, let's see, what is this, page 105? Or even
That's
this one,
nice.
maybe. 105 to me looks more agricultural, less residential. Or that one. That one looks like a pole barn. Like it or don't, it looks like a pole barn, right? So does
Yeah.
this one. This
And-
is what pole barns look like.
Yeah, and this one I wouldn't mind if it were somebody's accessory structure, but I wouldn't want that to be somebody's house next door.
Right, I think there's a difference between a pole barn behind your home and this as your principal structure. I think you could find that. So that's where you would want to have some mixes. Their wainscoting is just a different color of the standing seam metal. And so, you could say standing seam metal is not acceptable. There are some things that you could do like that. I think what I need to hear from the council as a whole is kind of what's important to you. And then we can figure out how to write a code to get there.
So with the metal siding, is that, you're just referring to the metal panel, or does that include steel lap siding?
For your code prohibits metal, period, so this would be steel lap siding, it would be all metal siding.
Oh, does it state no metal?
Yeah, the language in the code specifically lists the materials that are acceptable. I'm gonna go back
Yeah,
to that.
of how you have it wrote up in the packet, it's the exterior walls of all single-family residences shall be similar in appearance to normal wood, vinyl siding, or masonry residential construction. And if you took vinyl lap siding and metal lap siding, you really can't tell a difference from the road. So I would make an argument that steel lap siding is similar in appearance to vinyl lap siding, but nowhere does it have the metal panels that would traditionally come on, say, a pole building.
The standing seam.
Yes. So some of these pictures, they do have the steel lap siding on them, like that, and it looks like your normal vinyl siding from the road until you actually walk up and get close to it. You usually can't tell the difference unless you're a siding expert. You can identify stuff from the road.
Yeah, and I would say previous staff has indicated, just from notes I've seen, that they were not accepting that as similar, that metal siding wasn't the same quality, I think was their interpretation. And so if we think it is, that's a great way to deal with it. So then I would suggest you'd want to say metal lap siding, and just to clarify that. Because I do think you're right. I think that the quality of that product has changed a lot in the last 20 years.
Yep. Yeah, and it's usually defined as an upgrade from vinyl. So if we want to get that specific in some of our stuff, that in some of the definitions, that if we want to allow certain types where it has that, or a shake, or accessory, something, we would certainly need to define that, or call out what's not allowed. That might be easier. Or if we don't want a pole barn look, kind of start from there and go down that route.
So are most council members thinking that standing seam sheeting is not gonna be allowed?
If we want it to look more like a house, residential house, then we want it to look like a house and not a pole barn.
Yes, but however, if it's for an additional structure building, a garage, a pole barn, a storage building, then it's fine with me. But
Yeah.
for the barndominium aspect, and we, could we have a house and we could have a house and a barndominium, right? On
No.
a property, or no?
We can only have one principal structure.
Okay.
I guess another way we could combat it too is if you, especially on the street side of the building, you come up so many feet with like brick or something, so it ain't all metal. Anybody else?
I agree with what's being said here, that it's very important that we separate the two from what Susan's talking about and what Brian's talking about. But this type of siding and steel siding, it's night and day from what it was 10 years ago. The quality of it, how it reacts, how it holds up to weather, wind, everything. It's a perfect upgrade, like I heard earlier, to putting siding on your house. And I think our residents would be more than happy to have stuff like this if they either built one or lived by one or so forth. These are classy buildings.
I guess the only other downfall I can think of is, are we gonna be increasing our IUP, CUPs with buildings like this?
Well, we
Oh.
have a lot of interest in it, I think.
Good.
Well, would we even need a IUP or CUP if this is written into an ordinance?
Yeah, so I think what I've proposed is barn dominiums are an allowed use in the rural residential and ag district. And I think what I'm hearing is that metal siding is permitted, or should be permitted, for lap or other decorative siding, but not standing seam. And so the only question I think that remains then is how do you manage the size? Some of them are very tall, but it's your principal structure, and our principal structure does have height that can accommodate this. So that's not an issue on these like it is on detached accessory structures. So it's really a matter of how do you control the amount of accessory structure on a lot. And in my red lines, I made some suggestions to that section 14, and that's on page, what page is that on? There's a lot of text here. And so I'd like some feedback about that idea, about how you manage the amount of accessory space. Otherwise, I think we're in pretty...
It's at 95.
Yeah, so that is the existing table. And there's just some inconsistencies about how we use building versus structure. So I tried to clean that up. And if you go up above it, Matt, number 4, this was the new language that really, we have a minimum size for garages, but we don't have a max for attached garages. And so it was a little bit unclear about whether that table there was attached and detached, square footage all inclusive, and going back and reading some of the old staff reports didn't provide a ton of clarity. So this is my suggestion, and I welcome feedback on this idea.
So,
If we adopted these changes, I would just say, these would be permitted uses. It wouldn't come in front of you as currently drafted.
so you're comparing it to a principal structure that has a garage, attached garage, and they come in and want an accessory building. This is max size. So you're taking now the barndominium, assuming a certain amount of square footage for the garage. I think he marked 1,000 square feet for the garage, and anything up above, anything over and above that would be considered accessory building, and that would be the max per their lot.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
So if I had for an example, if I had a 5-acre lot, that table gives me 3,000 square feet of detached accessory building. So under this proposal, I could attach a 4,000 square foot garage to my house. What this doesn't do is have, so that's what that would do.
Okay. It seems like a reasonable place to start.
Yeah, I believe one of the first reasons people are building barndominiums is not to have a ton of accessory structures outside, have it all contained in one area.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see where this would work.
And I think it's a start because I want to contemplate the overall size, excuse me, a little bit, because I think about some of these mansions that are on small lots, like Minnetonka and Edina and stuff. And I'm like, well, their house is 10,000 square feet. They hardly have any grass. So I want to contemplate the size ratios, but I like where we're going right now.
The One thing that's in the staff report that I'd also mention on the garage size, and it could become a code enforcement issue, but home occupations can't exceed 50% of the gross living area of the principal structure. So if you have a 1,000 square foot house and a 4,000 square foot garage, your business part is not that whole garage, and that will be a little bit tricky, but maybe people just want it for all their sleds and boats and stuff, so. Just something to be thinking about, but I feel like I have good direction unless other council members have more thoughts. I think we could draft this up and we could either bring it back to you in another draft form, or we could bring it to the planning commission for a public hearing.
I do have a couple questions.
Mhm.
So I asked this question because on social media, I've seen pictures of so-called barndominiums that the garage is incorporated into the living space. So they have a garage and it's all one big open. They have garage doors. They have their living room right there. They have a loft, entertaining area, et cetera, et cetera. So with that in mind, are these garages defined from the living area and separated from the living area, just like a normal single-family home would be? You'd have your garage, you have your firewall, then you have your living space.
I am going to double check with the building official, but I believe that they are. One of the reasons the Minnesota Building Code actually adopted these standards is because they had concerns about that. We see that a lot with the car condos.
Yep.
Kind of stuff. I believe with the barn dominium, you do have to separate the living space from the garage space, but I will confirm that and bring that back.
Okay. Question on the definition of the barndominium. Says single-family detached principal residential structure. So I know what a detached townhouse is, because a townhouse implies that it's one big building with multiple units. A detached townhouse is a single unit. In this definition, how does detached, a single-family detached principal structure, why is it being called detached?
Yeah, both the building code and generally the planning lingo call what you and I call just a house, calls it single-family detached structure. So that's just the term that again, that definition comes directly from the building code,
Okay.
and that's how they refer to it. But really what it means is a house.
Yeah, a principal structure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then one other thing that, question to be asked. Okay, we allow these in agricultural and rural residential. In rural residential, we do have platted subdivisions of single-family homes that are of, you could call it, different type than a barndominium. Question would be asked, would we allow barndominiums in a platted single-family development? Because it's almost like putting a single-family home in a townhouse development. It's kind of two different living structures, living buildings.
Great question. I think that's up to the council. I would say two things. The council could set a minimum lot size in those zoning districts for barn dominiums, which would solve some of the platted subdivision question, but not all. I would be cautious about tying it to whether the lot is platted or not, because there's just so much that's different.
A platted subdivision, so not just a single lot.
Right, but anything that's a platted lot 1, block 1, Bryan edition is part of a subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's a 2-lot subdivision, Blanco de
Yep.
Cola is a subdivision. And so in that case, it probably would be appropriate. Those are large lots,
Yep.
right? But
Yep.
there are others where it wouldn't be. I feel like it's tied more to lot size. So that's a question for council. The other thing I would note is often subdivisions that are platted by, I can't think of who's done one here, but I'll just say Centra. Centra Homes often has covenants that would prohibit this. So sometimes you'll have subdivisions that'll control that. So that's a great question, is there a minimum lot size besides the zoning that you want to limit these to? I don't know.
Oh. It's a question definitely to be talked about. So I think that's all the questions I came up with.
And to your question, I would say I prefer you bring the draft back to the council before you take it to the planning commission. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but that's my official opinion.
Just for a simple review, then.
Discussion done?
Done.
All right, moving on. City Administrator.
Okay. Get to the right area here. Okay. This is agenda item 8.0 G2, and this is Administrative Coordinator Position Description Update and Salary Grade Change. Carrie Frost began employment with the City of East Bethel as an Administrative Assistant on November 4th, 2011. She was promoted to the City Permit Technician position October 1st, 2014, and she was promoted to her current position as Administrative Coordinator. And since that time, her position duties have expanded, and there's a list of them on here. I will just, I think that's 113.
You know, say she does a lot.
She does a lot. They don't have on here the go-to for any question, but I know that's one of the big things she does. So anyways. In addition, she's scheduled to complete her city clerk certification in July of 2025 this year. And that's a big certification, one that's very important. And currently right now, the administrative coordinator position is at grade 6 or $35.38 an hour. And we want to kind of stay within the East Bethel's salary matrix, and going up to grade 7 would be $38.92 an hour, and it has a fiscal impact of $7,363 plus benefits annually, and it is the recommendation of staff to approve and update this position and change the grade from 6 to 7 as noted here, effective March 11th, 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve the updated administration coordinator position from grade 6 to grade 7, effective March 11th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, second, discussion.
Thank you for everything you do, Carrie. It's really appreciated. It's not just for council, it's for the residents.
I just want to say, I think this is the way promotions everywhere should occur. I think people should earn it, and I strongly believe Carrie has always gone above and beyond, and she definitely has earned this.
Okay, so motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Motion passes.
Mr. Mayor, we'll go on to item number G2 and G3. G2 is the Sunrise River Water Management Organization budget and GPA Joint Powers Agreement amendment. And this comes every year. You'll see what we've paid here in the past and what's being proposed and what the East Bethel portion of it is. And there is a joint powers, the second part of this is the joint powers agreement, which essentially, when they're coming up with their new plan that's required by the state, how do you fund that? Is it operating cost or is it not operating cost? And that's, and you know, there's, the way the percentages are broken out, we pay more for non-operating costs than we do for operating, and the recommendation is to actually do a operating budget expense, or at 25% each of the member cities. Otherwise, it breaks out as Columbus 19, East Bethel 30, Ham Lake 4, and Linwood 47. So The plan is estimated around $50-some thousand, so it is a significant requirement. Let's call it an unfunded mandate from the state, and has to be budgeted for accordingly. So what's being proposed is to budget for it over a number of years so that it doesn't spike in one year and you see a large increase in that budget. At any rate, the Sunrise is before you for approval this evening.
So we'd need, 2 separate motions.
You can make one motion approving the budget and the JPA if you'd like.
Is there kind of 2 different discussions?
You can do it separately if you'd like.
Okay. Well, as a liaison to Sunrise, is there any questions on the budget?
I just want to know what they're doing different for that justifies the increase. I mean, 2025, there's no big
The-
increase at all, but to 2026.
The increase is starting to budget for the funding the 10-year plan. That's where the big increase comes from. Well,
That's for the Sunrise one. What about the other one?
uh,
Maybe we can talk about it
We
after
can
we
talk about
vote
that
for
when it
this
comes
one.
up. Same sort of deal though, yeah.
yeah,
Same reason?
Mhm.
Okay,
so.
got it.
Well, I'd make a motion then to approve the 2026 budget of $50,643 for the Sunrise.
Second.
Have a motion, second, any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard, motion passes.
So, and for the JPA amendment, currently the 10-year plan is, I'd call identified as a non-operating cost. And so it is broken down by the ratio that Mr. Look stated before. So what was proposed, and this was actually proposed by the Columbus representative, that the 10-year plan be defined as a operating cost. So everybody would then pay a 25% amount. So Columbus's would actually go up a little bit. East Bethel will go down, Linwood would go down, Ham Lake would go up a lot. And so Ham Lake may have opposition to it, but that's the history of where that proposed amendment came from.
And Mr. Mayor and council members, just for clarity too, all members need to vote on this. So if one doesn't vote on it, it doesn't pass, you go back to non-operating cost, which is the current way of dealing with it.
So do we have a motion on this part?
Well, we would need a motion to either yea or nay. Is there any thoughts from anybody on it?
Okay, none heard,
So I guess I will make a motion to approve the proposed JPA amendment of moving in the 10-year plan cost to an operating cost.
Second.
have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None heard. Motion passes.
And the mayor and council members, the second G3 item is the Upper Rum River Watershed Management Organization 2026 proposed budget. It's before you here today. Again, a breakdown of what was paid for previously and East Bethel's portion on that. And had it not been for the plan, the increases going into the plan, this budget would have seen a $60 increase. But planning for the cost associated with that plan, we have a larger than $60 increase. It's before you for approval.
So this is like $15,000 between 24 and 26. That's the biggest one so far. Anyways, I'll make a motion for the Upper Rum River Management Organization 2026 budget. That's when we're on, right?
I'll second that.
For approval.
So this is the one that I think I was mostly concerned about, because the other ones were 3,000 to 5,000 increase. This is like 15,000.
So we have a motion second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
Okay, Mr. Mayor and council members, one more item here is item 8.0 G4, Spring Town Hall meeting. There was a request to get this before the council to establish an available date in April to have this meeting, and so we have that before you here. We have available dates listed out here. Staff has somewhat looked into this and wanted to throw out yet another idea, just to not confuse matters, but give you guys a lot of options. And that is a proposal to hold the annual town meeting in conjunction with the city celebration of Booster Day. And, everybody's kind of here anyways, and it might be kind of an opportunity for a lot of folks to participate in that. But up to you guys if you want to pick a different date or how you want to handle that this year.
So if we pick booster days, what part of booster day would it be? Would it be an hour or two in the evening because I think everybody's going to be exhausted after a full day and they're not going to want to hang out here. People come and they're not going to want to come back. So
Carrie?
that's my feeling.
Were we thinking 6 in the morning, Carrie, or?
I believe you have some thoughts on this as you're involved with planning for Booster.
As on the write-up, since I know the Booster Day Committee is already trying to work on their schedule for the event this year, we would probably want to consult with the committee, see what other events are kind of anchored in place already, and see where we could wedge it in there in between and see what would be most convenient, and then bring that back to council.
So, wait and see. Thank you, Carrie.
And because we're talking April, I think maybe we could think about that for next year and start talking about it earlier, but I think I'm gonna just sit here and nominate April 24th for the date to do it, because I know the Airport Commission would like to come and some other outside organizations that could be affiliated and like to be promoted by East Bethel would like to set up a table.
Is there any conflicts over the 24th?
24th sounds good.
Is that a motion?
I'll make a motion to make the Spring Town Hall April 24th, Thursday.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
That'll start at 6.
I believe it's historically 6, yes.
Okay.
And can I ask to make sure we get signs put out, because sometimes in the past there are signs on the major intersections and sometimes there's not. So I'd like to see the signs back out to remind people the week of.
I got a great idea. Can we get a newsletter out to our
Working on it.
residents prior to that that'll include that information?
I'll get a more solid date for you on that.
That'd be awesome.
Okay. That said, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Staff report.
Mr. Mayor and Council, just a couple items I want to bring you up to speed on. We're making excellent progress right now on the security system that's being installed. We have completed the ice arena cameras. We've completed Fire Station 1. They are moving to here very soon, and then I know they're going out to Whispering Aspen. So so far that's moving on along nicely. They're dedicating a lot of people to doing that. There's also on June 25th through the 27th, there's the League Conference. It's going to be held in Duluth this year. I don't know if anyone plans on attending that, but if they are, that is obviously during the week. But if you are interested in attending that, we can get you signed up for that. As indicated on those bills that were supported here this evening, I will be lobbying on Thursday at the Capital Investment Committee. Fortunately, I do know the chairwoman of that committee, so hopefully that goes well. That will not be approved at that committee, but they will move that on to the next committees and so on and so forth. But we'll at least get a good feel for how if they're going to be receptive to that or what sort of pushback there may be. We get a 5-minute presentation on that, so we're going to cram it all into 5 minutes. We are in the process of finalizing the financials on the ice arena. I know that was brought up a few council meetings ago. We've sold more ice time than before, is what I'm told. And by all accounts, it's being managed much better than ever was before. So people are very happy that are there, and we're setting up for next year, determining how we're gonna, other agencies that might be able to use this and keep it going. We are, of course, keeping a close eye on it, make sure that from a financial standpoint, it at least breaks even. And that is all that I have for this evening. I'll stand for questions if there are any.
Okay, council reports.
I just want to talk about the newsletter, because I know on previous council, we talked about even getting it out 6 times a year. Last year, I think we got it out once. What can we do to fix that? The residents, what I understand, there's not a lot of people that watch the council meetings and stuff like that, but they will read the newsletter if we get it out. What can we do to speed that up and try to get it at least 4 times a year?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Council, we've had this discussion many times. The newsletter is kind of a function of articles and what sort of information goes into it and that sort of thing. And so if there isn't new articles that say to go into it, it doesn't really make any sense to put one out. But we are currently have requests out to the different department heads of what's a current article you want in there. For example, it's Nick might put an article in there about cleaning things up in your yard because the snow is starting to melt and things become visible, and we start getting complaints for code enforcement. Those type of articles can go in there. If council has ideas for articles, wants to draft articles, we can certainly put those in there as well, and kind of make it a useful document, shall we say, because it is expensive to put out. So.
Okay.
Piggyback that, do we ever sell advertising in that to local businesses since it goes directly to our residents?
There is advertising in it. I don't know that we push it real hard. We could make a few phone calls, or perhaps have the chamber, kind of research some of that and see if there's people that would be interested in participating in that. I know we have more. We have more people kind of contributing to the ice arena now too. They may be candidates for that as well. And
So the newsletter kind of falls to me, and as far as advertising goes, I do have a list that when I send out the email to recruit articles and whatnot from staff and other people that have, from external entities that have sent us articles, I also send out a separate email requesting anybody that wants to have advertising space that they can contact me. And we do have that listed on our fee schedule as far as the advertising space goes. We don't get a whole lot of interest drummed up in that. It is also a huge time suck.
To put advertising in?
Yeah, because most of the time I wind up designing the ads.
Oh, no, they have to design their own. But what is the fees?
I wouldn't be able to tell you off the top of my head. I do know that we do reduce it if they pay for 4 editions of the newsletter upfront. So if they pay for like a year-round ad, we do, I think it is like a 25% discount on the price of the ad, depending on the size. The largest ad space that we go is a 1/4 page. So
And if you only put out 1 in a year, do they get 3 the next year?
it's per edition that comes out. So
Okay,
yeah,
all right,
Yep.
good.
yep. So.
Are we doing the same with the ice arena? Are we selling any kind of advertising in there at all?
We do have, that is also on our fee schedule. That is something that Jay has been handling along with the ice arena management.
And what if somebody just gave you a business card and say, I want this as an advertisement?
Just like a scanned copy of the business card.
Yeah. You could
Scanned
throw that-
copy doesn't work, so then, yeah, you have to recreate the wheel, and, yeah.
Okay, got it,
It's a time suck,
got it.
so.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Anyone else?
I have some questions. Back to the key thing that's being installed, the security system. I had a resident ask me, what if the phones get lost? If somebody has, they can unlock the doors on the phone and somebody steals their phone, knows their password, then what?
So the access will be with security cards, but they also will have a 4-digit PIN. So certain locations you can punch in your PIN to get in. So all the firefighters will have a 4-digit PIN. They can get into the fire department if they remember their 4-digit PIN, just by punching that in. It'll be specific to each person. If you lose your card, we can fix it pretty easily, but they won't be able to use it for that time. So.
Okay, so just because at the last meeting, Mr. Look was talking about you can unlock a door with your phone, but you would need a keypad number 2, right?
The administrators of the system can unlock a phone, or unlock a door with the phone, so I could do it. Matt, if he has access to fire chief, he can unlock it, but not everybody.
Okay,
Just certain people, so they could call and say, we're locked up, can you quit, buzz us in, basically.
okay. What if somebody steals your phone and knows the
My
password?
phone's locked and password protected as part of our IT policy, but if I lose my phone, then we'll have to have, there'll be multiple people with access to it, so to be able to get in. And real quick, as long as I'm up here to answer your question earlier, that was the one-time monthly fee for the electric bill at the arena.
Okay,
In January, it was $4,300. In November, it was $5,200, and in October, it was $5,500. So that's the electricity to run that cooling system that chills that floor and keeps it ice cold,
so
along with the lights and everything else too.
it diminishes quite a bit during the summer then?
Well, in the summertime, yeah, it's almost non-existent.
Okay.
Electric cost there, yeah.
Ice is expensive. Now I
Yeah,
know
so
why
we just pulled
hockey's
it.
so
It's out
expensive.
now. It was out last week, so there's no more cooling that's been shut off, so that'll drop significantly now, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
My next question is, are interviews scheduled for the new CDD, the community director?
Interviews are not scheduled as of yet. We have 4 applicants right now, so we're going to meet with the personnel committee, kind of get next steps on that.
All right, and who is involved in, who sits in on the interview? The personnel committee, which are some council members, right? And who else?
Well, generally, it would be Mike Jazerski, myself, and possibly a department head or something like that, But we can certainly set that up with personnel committee individuals if you'd like. That's not a problem.
Yeah, I just feel like somebody from the council should be present. I just feel, so they can be totally different outlook, different view on it. And my last question or comment or desire is whenever there's a resolution, and this has bugged me for 6 years now, the city always says the city recommends approval for something, for whatever resolution it is. And I would like to recommend that it say, the city recommend the council approve or disapprove resolution, because I feel like it's a bias. I feel like if the city is recommending approval, the city, some council members might feel like, oh, the city thinks it's a really good idea, and not look for the pros and cons of everything. So that's just a suggestion on my part and for people to consider. And that's all I have.
We had our planning meeting. The three items that we saw tonight was there. There was another item of variance for a second driveway that I believe that we will see at our next meeting. And we have a Booster Day committee meeting on Wednesday that I'll be attending. That's all I have.
Anybody else?
I would just finish the budget over at the Upper Rum River. We also are one of 2 cities that have paid their dues for the years, which is nice. We got a Parks Commission meeting coming up tomorrow night, and that's all I have so far.
All right. So at this point, we'll close this part of the meeting and council will be going into closed session.
Before we do that.
Do you need to
Mayor,
read this?
Council, yeah, we need to state on the record that we're closing the meeting. It needs to be voted on by the members of the council.
make a
and
motion
we
to
need
adjourn.
establish why we're
Motion
going
to
into closed
adjourn.
meeting.
Oh, it's
We're
not
not adjourning
adjourned.
yet.
We're not
A
adjourned.
motion to go into,
So,
Here.
So,
point of order before we shut everything down here.
yeah, the city attorney usually says general terms of we need closed session, why we're going into it, and we will come back and reveal.
Yeah, some of these statements need to be made by the mayor as the director of the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to be going into agenda item 90, closed session, employee event improvement update. The council will now evaluate the performance of the fire chief and emergency manager, Rod Sano. Minnesota statute section 13D.05 subdivision 3A allows for the council to do so in a closed session. I ask that a motion to enter into a closed meeting to evaluate the performance of Fire Chief Sano.
Make a motion for the reasons the mayor stated.
second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. With that, council will proceed to closed session.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Mr. Mayor, it is on the advice of our council that we reconvene and then take a 10-minute recess for formulation of a statement.
You want to do what now?
Well, under normal circumstances, we would reconvene this meeting and then motion to adjourn. However, on the advice of our council, we should reconvene this meeting and take a 10-minute recess and then come back to the meeting.
I say that with the assumption that this body wants to issue summary findings tonight. If this body wants to issue it at the next meeting, that would be my preference. I mean, not to mislead you, Matt. My
Please
preference
speak into
would-
the mic.
Oh, my apologies. Mayor, Council, Mr. Look, that is correct. That was with the assumption that this body wants to issue summary conclusion from the closed session tonight. But in the event that you're okay waiting to the next meeting, that would be my absolute preference. But I understand the, the nature of the decision and the discussion in that meeting. And so I leave the question to you, but if you wish to proceed with the summary of the closed session tonight, I do ask for 10 minutes to create that summary.
Tonight? Yes. Let's do it tonight.
Do we need a motion for that or anything?
You do, just like any other recess. We're just going to recess the meeting as you would for, if you're taking a long meeting and needed a rest.
Okay, I will make a motion for a 10-minute recess so we can refine our findings from the closed session.
Second.
Have a motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're in recess.
Opposed? None. Okay, need a motion to reconvene the meeting.
Make motion reconvene.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, summary of the closed session. Read Fire Chief Rod Sandero under 13D-05. Meeting was closed to evaluate the performance of Fire Chief Rod Sandell. The meeting was a follow-up to a 60-day improvement plan. The city discussed the fire chief's efforts to regain confidence of the council. The fire chief was allotted adequate time to explain his performance and department morale. The council asked fire chief about his performance since implementing the 60-day improvement plan. Fire Chief Sano responded to the council's questions. The council deliberated at a length and voted to terminate Mr. Sano, Fire Chief. Any discussion on that?
No, that part's done. I want to make a motion to hire Jerry Strike as our interim advisor and until we have a new fire chief. I spoke with Jerry and he will work for the same pay as we were paying our previous fire chief. He will also work as much as we need him or as least as we need him. And also all of Rod's computer and all the 911 app and the first due, everything needs to be shut off immediately. And Jerry will assist us in finding the right chief. And also, he'll help us recruit one. And so we have the keys and the stuff from the chief also for the vehicle and the pager. So that's my motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Okay, I just kind of need refamiliarization. Now, Mr. Stryker is the guy who did the study on the fire department? And what are his qualifications?
Mr. Mayor and council members, Jerry Strike is a retired chief himself. He worked, I think it was in, I think it was Andover where he was the chief. He was a deputy chief in Ramsey. He has a long distinguished career. He started Capstone LLC as a consultant for fire departments and is well respected in the fire community and comes well recommended.
Okay.
So, I'd like to see a contract for him at the next meeting. I can see hiring him until the next meeting, until we have a actual contract in front of us. I don't want it to engage him a long time without seeing a contract.
Understood. We'll have that.
So in the interim, I can understand we have the need, but I want to see a contract at the next meeting and then we can vote to carry on.
If we wait for the next meeting, who's going to be in charge down there?
Well, that's why I said in the interim, I see the need and we can hire him, we can engage with his services.
Oh, I see. I missed
Up
that part.
until the
Sorry.
next meeting, when I just want to see a formal contract that explains the terms, and then if we so choose, that we can engage with them long-term.
Thank you. I missed your first part of your comment, so thank you.
So
Okay.
as long as he comes up with a contract that says that he is just an interim until we fill the chief.
Yeah, whatever the contract states, shows terms of employment, what his wage would be, et cetera. Then we
Okay.
could proceed full term after that if that's what council chooses. But I can see in the meantime, before that meeting, that we can engage with him up until the next meeting. That we kind of have no choice right now to.
Understood. I will have the attorney draft that for the
Okay,
next
thank
meeting.
you.
No more discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.